Hey, this is Professor Homa, and I'm going to review quickly at first, and then maybe I'll go in some detail later on of the layout of this flyer. Now, again, the flyer is meant to be designed any way you choose. It's meant to be your layout. This just happens to be my layout, and I added some color in the back, but we typically do these poetry flyers, but this is actually a reading flyer. There's this Common Experience event that they're holding in April, and they're doing full color flyers, so we're designing it in full color. And the only images we have to work with are basically a copy of the book cover and the woman's picture, the author's picture. And what I try to do with this is incorporate some color from the book. I'll zoom into this a little bit so you can see it a little better. Incorporate some of the colors. The book is called Nickel and Dimed, and it's Barbara Ehrenreich, and here's her picture, and this is the book. And what we try to do is basically, this will get posted around campus and maybe outside of campus as well. So we ended up putting this extra little blurb down here with the college address and some information. But we want the name to stand out and her book to be prominent, and also the date and time. There's also a second little date and time of an interview and Q&A. It didn't mention any registration, so we assume it's in the same large room, large venue room for that, so they don't expect people to register. So one of the last things I added was this color in the background. It seemed to kind of pull things together a little bit, kind of gave it a warmer, kind of unified feel. And I'll go over some of the steps. The first steps is really getting the artwork together. So that's what I really want to go over first. The folder that you get is going to be called Reading Flyer, and what it'll have the pre-art. There's JPEGs of her picture. There's one of her with glasses and kind of looks like it was taken by a photographer in a studio. There's one where she's kind of looking at you with glasses on. I thought this one looked a little more professional, so we went with that one. There's a biography, a PDF. I don't think you have to use this for any reason. And then the book cover. And unfortunately, none of these are really high resolution, so we have to keep them fairly small. So we do the best we can with them, but we're going to open the JPEGs up in Photoshop first and just do some minor adjustments and then save them, you can see here, as TIFF files. And you can see what I did is I put all the original stuff in the pre-art folder, and then there were TIFF files that are our finished print versions that are going to be in our InDesign file, which is, here it is, Reading Flyer, the one that I was looking at. And there's also a flyer info, which is in Word, which you can copy and paste a lot of the content out of there. So and it has just a message about it too, just so you see that it's not Visiting Author Series, it's WCCC's Common Experience, which I changed to say a WCCC Common Experience event, which we'll see if that's fine or not. So that's what we're going to have in there. I'm going to run through some of the steps. The first step is going to be in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is basically open up, this is the photo I want to use. I'm going to open that up, and you could right click and say open with Photoshop. And here's the image. And the first thing you want to do in Photoshop, I'll zoom in first of all, and you can see even when I zoom in it's a little blurry. And if I go to image size, I could see that it's 72 pixels per inch and like 3.5 by 3.5. It's only 250 pixels by 269. It might have been taken off the internet or something, but it's not a real high resolution image, but we'll do the best we can with it. And so I don't have to do anything here, although one thing I will do is I want to put it in the resolution we want for print. And typically 300 is what we want for print. But because we're printing these out, these aren't going to a commercial press or anything like that. I'm just going to make them maybe somewhere around 180 to 200. And the way to do that is unsample or uncheck resample, and then put the resolution up to like 180. And then it resizes it down. It takes all those pixels and it kind of compresses them in a smaller area, so you get the higher resolution. So now it's like around 1.5 high by 1.38, and that's fine for now. And I'll hit OK. Now what I want to do with this image that I have here, now that I have it the right size, is the first thing I want to do is go Image Mode, and I want to convert it to Cmyk, because that's what we want for print. We don't want RGB. This isn't for the web, this is for print, so we want it breaking down into the Cmyk. So all that you have to do is just hit OK when you convert it to Cmyk. So again, Image Mode, and then convert it to Cmyk. And we don't have any layers. We're not going to work with any layers here. Now, this fairly dark photo, I mean, her face isn't dark. There's a lot of highlights in here. And if you go to Image Adjustment Levels, you'll see that here's the histogram, and it's actually missing some darks at the end. It's a lot of midtones, lighter midtones, but most are kind of in the dark range, and it's got highlights, so this is not a bad image in terms of the range, but it looks a little dark. So one thing I am going to do, and also for printing it out, we may be printing it out on like color laser printers. Anything that's dark is going to get filled in a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is go to image adjustments and just attack the shadows a little bit. I always like to attack the shadows first if it has dark shadows. Now when it comes up in Photoshop, it comes up at like 35, so I'm going to turn that down. I don't need it up that high. I might turn it down to somewhere like around 20, just to brighten up the shadows. It might bring some detail into her sweater a little bit more, and that's all I need to do right now. I don't want to brighten it up too much more. I don't want to lighten up. I don't need it so I could see every fold in her sweater or everything like that. That's not necessary, and it's bleaching out the shadows in her face. So like right on 20 is probably fine for that, depending on how it looks, in your version of Photoshop. So I'll hit OK, and I'll even go to image adjustments levels, and it adjusted them a little bit because I did. Now there's actually more darks here because I kind of lighten them. And what I'm going to do is just kind of tweak midtones. I don't want to lighten the highlights much more. I mean, if I did, I'd go slightly, but there's enough highlight here. I just want to tweak the midtones a little bit. It's going to remove contrast, but it'll help printing out a little bit better. So I'm just going to lighten things just slightly, just to compensate. And just so you're aware, if you ever have images that are going to print darker just because of the paper or the ink or anything like that, you can use output levels, and that shifts all the darks lighter when they print. That compensates for kind of the filling in of dark colors. Same thing on the other end. If you have like really high contrast images, you could tone down the light so you don't have the white of the paper showing through. So we don't really have to do that here. I think just tweaking this a little bit is fine. I'm also going to go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and just do a little bit of sharpening, not a lot. So I might take it down to somewhere like 40 just to get a little bit of crispness to it. I don't want to, there's not a lot of things I want to sharpen here. I'm sure she doesn't want her face sharpened to make any more wrinkles or anything like that. So we'll keep the sharpening down, but we'll just make it a little crisper. So I'll hit OK. And that's pretty good. Now, I could crop this in here too. And I think when we did it in class, we cropped it. You can either use the crop tool, which will allow you to kind of preview it a little bit, and decide. Because actually, the way this looks here, I might even want to take her hands out and the glasses. I'm not they look kind of big down here, just with the black sweater. I think it's just the contrast, but they make her hands look big and all that, and your eyes go down there. So we'll probably end up cropping it, something like this, and we make it a little more rectangle. We might bring it in something so we're just focused on her. And we might do that. And you could do that if I hit return right now or enter, you would crop it like that. But I'm going to cancel. I'm going to hit escape and cancel. Other way to crop, just so you're aware, is you could just take your marquee tool and just make an area and move it around and then go image crop. You can also crop that way. It's another way to crop. And I'm going to undo that. And the reason I'm not going to crop it is because I could crop it in InDesign with my frame. So I'm just going to let that go right now and just do a file save. Do save as, and I'm going to go find my reading flyer. Now I have TIFFs in here already, so I'm going to save them as different names, because since I'm redoing this, I'll just call it I'll call it 2. Everything I'm doing here I'll just call 2. So Barbara Ehrenreich, and I'll do pic2.tiff, so I know that that's the one that I'm doing right now and not my original. So I'll hit save, and I'll leave it wait a minute, I forgot something. Let me do that again. File save as. That was fine with the file, except one thing I forgot to do is make sure you change the format to TIFF. Format to TIFF first, and then I'll go here and put it to 2. And I could even click now on this image and just put a 2 in here. But make sure you change the format to TIFF, because right away I saw that compression, I knew it was JPEG. So change that to a TIFF, and you shouldn't have to change anything else. Just hit save. There's no layer, so you wouldn't have any issue with that. Just hit OK, and now we have a TIFF, and that's what we're going to put into our flyer. I'll leave that open, and I'll just open up the other one, and I'll do this one quick because I already did the other one. And you can see here I got it in the wrong one, so I should put this out in the main directory. I'll move those around later, but I'll open up the one of the book. There's one of the book here, so I'll open that up. I'll drag this to Photoshop, or you could right click and do open with Photoshop. And there's the book. Again, if I go to image size, I'll note that it's only 193 by 300 pixels. Very low resolution, So I'll leave resample unchecked, and I'll put it up to like 180, which should be fine for what we're doing. And it's not a very big image, so it doesn't give us a lot of room to scale it up, but we still might make it a little bigger. It just won't be real great quality. And there it is. And also I want to make sure I go mode Cmyk, because we want to do that for print. Just hit OK when you get that message to come up. And you can see, even just looking at it on my screen, it's very dark. I mean, obviously there's black ink, but it's very contrasty. So if I go to image adjustments levels, I'll see if anything's missing, and there's nothing. There's a range, nothing's missing, so there's not a whole lot I have to do here. I might go to image adjustments, shadows, highlights, and just lighten up the shadows. You can see it lightens up the background a little bit, and actually, even around 30 is probably fine. I usually move this down, but actually that's pretty good. And then I'll go image adjustments levels again, and I said I shouldn't have anything here to change, but I'm even going to tweak midtones a little bit more. Just because when this prints out it's going to get darker, I might even move my output to make my darks a little lighter. I'm actually taking away contrast just because I know when it prints out it's going to get kind of darker and fill in more. And that's all I really have to do. I could do filter unsharp mask. If I use this one up here, it'll be the same settings that I used last time, or I could just go to sharpen unsharp mask and do it from the beginning, and I think I had it like 40. I'm going to sharpen a little bit more because it does have text on it, and it's going to be small and hard to read, so I'll increase it maybe up to like 60 or 70 this time, just to make the text pop a little bit more. And I'll hit OK, and that's all I should have to do for this one. I'm not going to crop it because it's already cropped to the size of the cover. I'll do File, Save As. I'll make sure I choose TIFF from my formats, and this time I'll save it, I guess, out in my reading flyer. I'll do it out here. I'll choose the cover one, and I'll put a 2 after it since I'm doing a separate one. You won't have that. You won't have anything in there. And I'll hit Save. And I'll hit OK. So I have my 2 images ready to go, and I have my copy ready to go for my word flyer. So what I'll do in the next video is start laying this out in InDesign.